Hello, my loves, and welcome back to another episode of the Source Diva Podcast. My name is Sheila, and I'm so grateful to have you here today. So, we're going to go ahead and dive right into this podcast episode because I have many things that I want to dive in for you and giving you the raw, honest truth. So, today we're going to be talking about the domino effects and what happens when you stray away from your soul path and how this literally turns into like entire snowball domino effect. When you are disconnected from your soul path and you are going in the opposite direction, you're straying away from it, your actions, the way that you're thinking of yourself, all the 8 areas of your life, and the way that you're navigating yourself. And what ends up happening when you pull away from your soul path, it becomes this domino effect, this snowball effect where you just continuously get worse. And all of it is perfect. Okay. So I know someone, for example, who has really high frequency, really high potentials, have a lot of soul wisdom and knowledge, but this person does not see it, is not aware of it, and they're also vibrating at a very low frequency. So anytime like they can be receptive to certain information, or they used to be, but then now it's kind of like goes into one ear, comes right out the other because the perception isn't there anymore. This person also too, they have really high soul potentials. I see it easily. And even as I like look and intuitively into them, I know once they are in their 40s is when they're finally going to like understand these things or have more like lessons that come up through their human experience that will put them back on their soul path. But right now, this person is in their late 20s. Okay. So we're talking 20 years in the making, literally, where this person is finally going to have enough soul lessons or human experiences that is going to get them back on their path. But domino effect right now, because of them not being on their path, from them, actively going against it, and kind of like there's a lot of pieces that go into this, which is another thing. We mentioned in our previous podcast, before I keep going, and I'm about to sneeze, so higher self is really confirming all of this information. Um, and I overthought it, so now I'm not going to sneeze anymore. So, we talked about this in our previous podcast episode on how, like, sometimes you don't even realize that you're not actually like your soul path isn't what you think, or like you might think you're on it, but it's actually not it. And there's a lot of things that go into this because obviously there's the huge thing of dark force programming, thoughts that are not your own, you taking on other people's thoughts, their energies, their emotions, especially too if you're not like aware or know how to clear your energy, cleanse your energy, remain sovereign with yourself. It's very easily for you to be impacted and penetrated by dark force programming or just external influence that is not actually of your own, and it's not ultimately the truth if we look at intuitively of what actually is the fullest potential for you. So this person, for example, they have like that perfect combination of all those things, but it's also like a very eye-opening thing for me to view as well of like, okay, this person does have dark forces on them. They do have external energies, thoughts, external perception that is distorting like the true essence of themselves, their intuition, being connected to themselves, and how they are like feeding into that. And now it's like snowballing effect into all of the areas of their life where like I intuitively, when I looked in as well, like I said, this person is not going to be able to have the clarity until they're in their 40s, because right now with how they're so embedded in this world of perception with dark force programming and external thoughts and thoughts that are not their own, they won't be able to find that within themselves until 20 years down the line when so many things happen, which is perfect, right? It's perfect. It's sad, but it's also perfect. Reason why it's sad is because obviously, like, we can speed up these timelines. We can obviously do the intuitive work. It's not easy. It's very difficult. You have to hold yourself accountable, boots on the ground, taking the bulls by the horn, and really showing up for yourself and doing the uncomfortable work, right? But if not, if you don't have these tools, if you don't understand these things, if you, just feel like your life is simply like you can kind of just, not that you can do whatever, because obviously we have free will, of course, but more so of like you don't have to be intentional with your life. You don't have to be intentional with what you're consuming, how you're thinking, which areas of life you're actually fulfilling and which ones you're ignoring, and you're not looking and using your intuition. You're not understanding the reflective pieces that come through this. Then that kind of just leaves you up for human self to have these experiences, you snowballing effect into these human experiences that are actually not in alignment with you, some of them which are absent of light, external influences from other people who also have levels of distorted and have a lot of self-image issues on them. So then because you are also like that, they're amplifying it, and now you're snowballing effect into these things where you're doing these actions you might have never done before. You're a completely different person, but not in a good way. And we say good, right? But perception wise, and you're doing actions and things that are physically harming your body and taking you out of your soul potential, your soul path, and the actual like pull that source and God and your higher self have in mind for you. Now, this is perfect because obviously this person, and this goes for everyone across the board, this is perfect because when I intuitively look in and I check, and this is all across the board, for anyone who is like off their soul path, it's perfect because when they have these 20 years of things happening to them, multiple human experiences, even if it gets really, really bad, it's perfect because eventually 20 years down the line, they're going to have a different perception. And then finally, they're going to have, slowly going back onto their soul path. But right now, these 20 years are very reflective. They're going to be highly impactful, emotional. There's going to be a lot of physical things going on. It might even lead to health issues. It might even lead to, like certain things happening, emotional states that are low and then amplify dark forces. Like all of this is perfect in the sense that it will cause growth. It will cause the lesson and the learning to happen. Granted, not everyone in this lifetime is meant to understand and know their soul path. Okay. And the reason why is because sometimes it is like the soul chose from the beginning with source, with God, with your higher self, that when we have this human experience, we're going to go through the ringer. We're going to go through all these things. And then, like, during our next lifetime is when we're going to have the actual awareness to heal certain things and move through our soul path in the way that we're actually meant to. But not everyone has that, in the sense that it's a repeated lesson that has to be cycled through. Okay. And this person who is insanely high frequency, I see it so easily of how, like, okay, this is all now like perfect. This is all perfect. The way that they're moving, the things that they're doing, the actions that they're taking, even if it's perceivably bad, it's perfect because I see in their timeline when they are in their 40s, that's when the human experiences are going to start to wrap up and they're going to be able to fully like start being back on the path of their higher self and their soul pull. But these consequences, it can spiral so much and it can accelerate so much. Like I said, snowball effect of you taking on certain habits and things that are not genuinely of your highest potential. And when you stay ignorant to it, it kind of just further deepens in a hole. You know how people are like, have that expression, dig yourself a bigger, like you're digging yourself a deeper hole, or like, oh, I hit rock bottom. And once I hit rock bottom, like that's when I changed. That's where this comes from. Like, that's literally where this comes from, because it's not like things are going to get better when you're actively straining away from your soul path. Like, it won't be until you hit such dirt shit experiences that you finally like, okay, I'm done. Like, your human is done with it, right? And it's not even like, we can use intuition to speed this up, to actually look in and work on the things. Once again, extremely hard. We know this, right? We know this. It is hard, but it's possible and it's worth the commitment. But a lot of people don't invest the time and the energy into that commitment and what it takes, and holding themselves accountable in that way, because it means that you would have to let go of this identity that you built so strongly that is completely the opposite direction of where you're actually meant to hold yourself on your soul path and your soul pull. So this snowball effect, and it's kind of just to give you more of like the awareness of it, because we were talking about soul potentials and like how sometimes your soul potential isn't what you think it is. I know this happened to me as well. Like during the first few years of my spiritual journey, I had this perception around, this is how my spiritual journey is going to look. This is what I want to do. And although like the intent was there, because intuitively I knew that I was a healer, intuitively I knew that I had intuition that I can do these things, but I didn't have the tools and the resources. And I also was, distorted by like a lot of external things, and the impact of how spirituality can be distorted by dark forces. If anyone ever tells you that nothing in the spiritual world is distorted, please run the other way, because it's not true. Um, dark forces have been able to infiltrate a lot of things, and spirituality is 100% one of them as well. That's why you have to be very mindful and using your intuition and being very discerning when it comes to receiving certain intuitive information from anyone, making sure that they're having all the filters there. But it's the same thing with your soul path and you going down this like domino effect of straining away from it, pulling away from it, where you are doing certain things that you like. It's almost like you're I want to say like it's almost like you're a puppet for essentially like the external world and everyone else. Like you're not actually living your life for yourself. And if you think back, and I want you to, because even myself, like I find myself, perfect examples. Literally yesterday, I had a big reflection come up that I'm like moving through with my vehicle, my car. But even then, like just the way that I use my intuition, I know that the way that I was using my intuition has to change because I'm going through certain upgrades, certain potentials, certain like awareness is opening up for me more because it's bringing me back or bringing me more onto my soul path. And if I were to ignore that, then I would just be capped at this level. And not only that, I would be essentially like pulling away from my soul path because instead of continuously going the direction that honors me, me just staying the same or deciding to pivot a different way without actually checking if this is actually fully in alignment with me could domino effect into delays with whatever goals that I have. It can domino effect to me doing certain actions that I would have never done that, take me off of my soul path, connecting with certain people that actually are not in capacity to be in, contact with me or have relationships with them or connections with them or friendships with them. And it just pushes me away, right? And it doesn't seem like it's a big thing, but when we look down the line, we look intuitively, this is like pushing my potentials back 10 years, or it's pushing my potentials back in my romantic area life for another 7 years just because I decided to do one thing that led to another thing and domino effect. Here I am, I pushed my potentials out several years versus you using your intuition and actually staying on that path and adjusting, but adjusting in the way that continuously moves you forward versus backwards. I hope that makes sense. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode, and I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.